I'm happy to be here. I'll tell you a little bit about me. As you can tell from looking at my face, I'm beige. I'm a beige man. And people seem to have questions about that, so let me clear it up for you if any of you are confused. I'm biracial. My dad is from India, and my mom is a tiny German lady from Wisconsin, which apparently results in a shockingly tall Mexican man. Listen, it's surprising for me, too. Genetics are a mystery. Sorry, everybody, it's 2025. I'm what you would call Latin presenting. But I'm self-aware, man. I know what I look like. I know I look like if you ordered Bad Bunny from Temu. It's just it's my cross to bear, and I have to live with that. But people are very confused if I don't do these jokes early on, and I get it, right? I got tan skin. My last name is Mamawala, which is clearly something. Folks, my name is Adam Mamawala. I have an A every other letter of my first and last name. That's too much. I don't care who you voted for. I think we could all agree if Kamala Harris had my last name, sheer chaos. Kamala Mamawala, that is... this is outrageous. Folks, Kamala Mamawala that is a Dr. Seuss ass name. Folks, let me be honest with you. Kamala Mamawala sounds like Donald Trump making fun of Kamala Harris. By the way, if anybody asks for the next 4 years, I am Italian. But I start with these jokes, and otherwise people have questions for me sometimes after shows. And generally speaking, they're polite. 9 times out of 10, somebody will be like, oh, that's a very unique last name. Do you mind if I ask you the origin? But every once in a while, someone walks up to my face, and they're like, what are you? Afraid. And I remember a couple years ago in New York, I had a meeting with a casting director. And during this meeting, in a somewhat condescending tone, she looks at me and she goes, you know, it's very important in this industry that you understand how people perceive you. How do you think people perceive you? It's like, I don't know. I've been told I'm kind of in that ambiguous category. She's like, oh, do you mean in terms of your ethnicity or your sexuality? Well, I guess both now. But I get it, man. I'm not offended by that. I know I'm a pretty well-groomed sort of guy. I'm pretty clean cut. No tattoos or anything. Never even thought about it, honestly. Anytime somebody asks me if I would get a tattoo, I'm like, a tattoo? I have stickers on my MacBook I regret. I can't risk a tattoo. But that's just my vibe. I'm not like the other bad boys of comedy, you know? I'm a very... Every assumption you made about me in the first 2 minutes of getting to know me is 100% accurate. And I don't love that, but it is true. Like, I know I look like I make my bed every morning. You know what I mean? Like, I realize that I have the vibe of somebody who would wear a helmet on a Peloton. And I do. You can't be too safe. I know none of you would say it to my face, but I know you've already assumed I was conceived missionary, and I bet you're right. I've never asked, but I have a feeling. My favorite thing people ask when they find out my dad is Indian is like, oh, is your dad disappointed that you're a comedian? So, like, I find that question both rude and reasonable. Like, I get where it comes from. It's just a weird thing to say. He is actually the rare, supportive Asian parent. He's cool with my career in the arts. My mom's very supportive as well. Honestly, my parents believe in me to a point that I find concerning. I think I'm the first comic with that backstory. But, like, my parents are so supportive of my dreams that I know I'm never going to make it. You know what I mean? Like, be honest. When have you ever once heard that be the origin story of artistic excellence? It's like, everyone believed in me this whole time. Those are not the stories of perseverance that you hear. You know, you need haters. You need doubters. You never heard Biggie at the beginning of a song be like, hey, this one goes out to all the teachers who told me I would amount to something. It'd be a confusing song. But that's not my story. My dad shares my stand-up schedule on his LinkedIn. I am screwed. There's no... Shut up. He's not here. There's no world in which I'll be a famous comedian with so much love in my life. I picture myself sometimes 20 or 30 years from now, people asking me, like, so Adam, how did you get to where you are today? It's like, well... My parents told me that they would love me unconditionally no matter what happened, and that I should never let my career define my sense of self-worth, and I guess that is why I live with them. I actually did. I got stuck living with them a couple years ago. It was a combination of the pandemic and me getting divorced, which, if you're not familiar, is when you get socially distanced from legally. And I was with them for 4 months, exactly 4 months. And for some people, that would be a nightmare. For me, it was fine. They're good people. The biggest issue I had during that time was that, as I mentioned earlier, they're too supportive of my dreams. And what that meant during that time was I started doing some of those online comedy shows. And they were exactly as depressing as you would assume they would be. But your boy was doing the old Zoom circuit. And every single time I did a Zoom show, my parents were like, that is so inspiring. to see you still pursuing your art in these difficult times. We would love to support you by watching from downstairs. So every single time I did one of these shows, without fail, my parents would take out their shared laptop, on which they also share an email address, but I don't have time to get into it, and they would watch me from the same house. It was completely insane, but very sweet. Now, the first couple weeks everyone's home, no one really knows how to do these virtual shows, and people are experimenting with stuff. And I get asked if I want to do a show on Instagram Live. And I agree to do that show before learning that Instagram Live is quite possibly the worst place in the world to do stand-up comedy, because you're doing it for no one. You're telling jokes to your own face in your phone. The only other thing you see is a little number in the corner of the screen signifying who's supposedly watching you, but you don't know who's there. So I agree to do this show. Unbeknownst to me, my loving parents tune in downstairs in the same house. And I don't know that they're watching, and that's a problem, because the whole premise of this show is that we're all gonna try our new quarantine bits. And I tell this joke about how I feel the worst for teenage boys who are quarantining with their parents, because I know when I was a teenage boy, the only thing that got me through the day half the time was knowing that my parents would inevitably leave the house at some point, and I would have some time alone. And now I feel ridiculous as this man in his 30s forced to live with his parents again in the middle of a global pandemic, just praying that they go for a walk once a week. Now, again, I have no idea that my parents have heard this, and it only becomes clear to me a couple days later when I'm sitting in my room and I hear my mom very dramatically yell up the stairs, "We just wanted to let you know that we are going out for a walk now. We will be gone for between 20 and 30 minutes. You might have longer, but you'll have at least 20 minutes. So I'm just sitting there in my childhood bedroom, a recently divorced, unemployed comedian, as his mom gives him permission to masturbate. Just thinking to myself, oh my God, 20 minutes. My parents really do believe in me way too much. You guys are great. Enjoy the rest of the show. I'm Mamawala. Have a good night.